definitely got a little weird after that. But again, the show just kept growing and getting bigger and bigger, and then the floodgates were open. By the way, once that article was out, and then it was like, well, screw it. The gloves are off.
Welcome to Log Off. Everyone has an internet story to tell, and today we're getting Scott Rogowsky's. You already know Scott. In fact, you've probably fielded questions from him. As the face of HQ Trivia, he was probably the most famous person on the internet for a very enjoyable moment in time, but he's much more than just a quiz daddy. He's hosted several live talk shows, made some of the viralest of internet videos, and he's the collector and dealer behind a wildly impressive vintage clothing collection. I'm excited to talk to him about all of that. But first, Scott, let's start this podcast the way we always do. At the beginning, what is your earliest internet memory?
Am I going to get in trouble if it's porn?
No.
Is that everybody's
all I want is
answer?
honesty here.
Or is that everybody's answer? I mean, definitely underage. Me being underage. I remember those early websites where they thought they were being, I don't know, compliant with some regulation where you had to click 18, click if you're above 18. Like that was going to stop anybody. Was that my early? No, but that wasn't, I don't know if that was my very first earliest internet memory. God, I mean, AOL has to be, I think like everybody else my age, we had the AOL in the family computer, the one computer upstairs. Like I have early computer memories, but I don't know if, I guess like SimAnt wasn't the internet, was it? Like the game SimAnt? Not the Sims. I never was a Sims guy, but I had SimAnt. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what SimAnt is. I know
very few people. I've talked about this other people. Like I was obsessed with this game SimAnt, where it was ants. You were an ant in an ant colony. You were exchanging fluids through your mandibles with other ants. You were avoiding lawnmowers and raindrops. Like it was a totally, I was obsessed with like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that type of Bug's Life, those movies where, you're in the grass, like you're in the lawn. What's going on? There's a whole world happening in the lawn. And this game definitely fed into that for me. So I played a lot of SimAnt growing up, but I guess that was a CD-ROM. That wasn't, oops, that's my alarm to do the podcast. But I put on snooze. We're doing it.
What was the goal of SimAnt? Was it just survival, or was it like you're trying to build a?
Oh, you had to feed the queen, man. It was all about getting that queen. I guess it was survival. I remember there being the queen that you were supposed to protect, or maybe like you become the queen. Maybe that was it. If you beat the game by becoming the queen and starting your own colony. Oh, the flying ants, you can fly. Oh my God, all these memories are rushing back. I want to find this game somewhere. You could like leave your ant colony and go to other colonies. So there was above ground views of the little holes and as a kid, you're obsessed with. I think all of us were obsessed with nature. I was certainly into bugs, into turning over rocks, looking at insects, looking at anthills out in real life. So it very much like tapped into that for me. But the queen, the drones, I learned a lot about ants. At one point, I guess I thought maybe I'll be a biologist of some kind, but I still am into nature and animals and things. Ants, not so much these days. I don't know. They're fascinating. They could lift 100 times their weight or something, but there's a whole A.O. Wilson, right? There's some big book about ants, some treatise. It's one of the best science books ever written about ants. I can't say I think much about ants these days, Ryan. But you are getting me to think about it now. And but internet. I mean, shoot, it's got to be just AOL. I did a lot of AOL chat rooms.
Do you remember what you were doing in those chat rooms? Were you causing trouble, or were you actually having legit conversations?
Absolutely, no. I mean, it was nothing but trouble. But this was like 6th grade, I want to say, because I switched schools in 6th grade. I met this kid, Brendan, and we became friendly. And he was, we're not beyond friendly. We were like, became like best friends. He was hysterical. And we would do these things where we go into chat rooms and like have this, we would like be pranking the chat room kind of. Right. So he was the plant or I was the plant, and one person would start the chat, and we would just be, I guess we did a lot of like luring, I think, like trying to trying to lure predators. I think we were really messing around with that, pretending to be, 16-year-old girls when we were 12-year-old boys, and I don't know, weird stuff. I actually, and it stopped me if I'm going past where the chronology, but this is around the same time. I had an internet girlfriend, like a legit one, who was a real person who lived in Indiana. Her name was Lauren. And would you believe it? We're still in touch to this day. I mean, not really. I think a happy birthday text every year, but she was like, a person I met in a chat room, and we started chatting. And I guess like we would write these long emails. I mean, this was 6th grade, 7th grade. I never kissed anybody before. I didn't have any girlfriends. She was like my first, I guess, para girlfriend, para social girlfriend. And we ended up meeting in real life much, much later when I was like a junior in high school. And I think we did end up kissing. We kissed. We kissed in real life. The fact that we were still in touch all those years, but I would print out our emails. I mean, I probably still have them somewhere in a binder full of our emails back and forth. We'd write long emails, talk on the phone, sending each other letters in the mail with photos. So I was big. I was a big user of the internet and found utility in it. Way back from the beginning. But those were the wholesome days, Ryan. Those were the fun times.
Not to open a wound, but was there a Lauren breakup? How did that go?
Not really. No, it was, and again, we weren't, was it a girlfriend? But it wasn't that, it never got to that point, I think, but it was like a pen pal. I mean, maybe it was, I don't know. We were just, it was like this fantasy thing. I'd be in summer camp and I'd write her letters and she'd be in camp, but it was like having a pen pal, really. Like I would hear about her life. And as a sheltered kid growing up in, the suburbs of New York City, like I didn't meet people from the Midwest. She wasn't Jewish, God forbid. I'm talking to like someone from a different culture, like I had such a insular childhood in a way. So that was fun for me. And hearing about all, she was an ice skater and she did that competitively, I think. And just, I don't know, I was open up to this whole world.
Were you talking to people in real life about this relationship, and did they believe you?
I don't know if I did, honestly. I kind of kept it pretty private. I think it was and almost like an embarrassment too, because no one else was doing this back then. I mean, this was well before dating apps. Like people didn't meet on the internet in 1997. Or maybe they did, but they're older. But my age, 97, I was 12, 11, 12 years old, something like that, 12, 13. But yeah, Lauren, she's married, has kids, lives in, I think in Dallas. I think she's in Texas, but no, it's amazing. She's a very nice girl. And, it's kind of amazing that we've been talking for 20 years. I mean, when I say talking again, it's a birthday text these days, but maybe we should do an anniversary. Maybe it might be the 25th anniversary, probably more than that at this point. I'll come up on 30. Maybe for the 30th anniversary, we'll do a reunion. I don't know.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you started actually putting stuff online, like content?
I really wasn't much. So I did use the internet in that way, in those early days. And there was a lot of like consumption. I wasn't much of a producer of content. I mean, my very first, like I didn't have a Tumblr. I didn't have a blog. In 2006, and now we're talking in college. Like I had a blog when I studied abroad. So that was like the first time that I did. I was also when I first started doing stand-up comedy in New York, summer of 2000, probably also 6. Yeah, so 2006, I studied abroad, and then I came home and I was doing stand-up in New York, and I was kind of chronicling my summer in the city. This was a summer between junior and senior year of college, so that was the first time I was really, using the internet to write and post. And then in 2009, I put up my first YouTube video. So again, not, somewhat early, but not 2007. So I guess it was still fairly early, but to me, YouTube was, for someone who was using the internet so much, like I was very well aware of YouTube well before I started actually posting on it.
Do you remember your first video that went up that actually got you some attention?
Oh, it was the very first one. No, I mean, my experience with the internet is kind of strange when I think about it, because I'm not. I don't think I'm like a super user. I'm not. I don't live online. I was late to. I joined Twitter in probably 2011, 2012. I joined Instagram in 2017, like when HQ started. I didn't have an Instagram account when I started hosting HQ. Like I just didn't really use these apps. I didn't have a smartphone, I think, till 2011. Like I was trying to avoid it. I was one of these, semi Luddites, kind of making the, everyone's on their phones all the time. Come on, you gotta. That's not a way to live. It's all about conversation and being IRL. I mean, I had, integrity, and I was really holding on to that. And then I finally caved and got the smartphone, and then forget it. I mean, now I'm just as bad as everybody else. It's disgusting. But that's what it does to you. It sucks you in and it ruins you, Ryan. But then at the same time, my first video, went viral. Like between the luck of that, the luck of like HQ, like all these things that it just happened that way. I mean, my very first video on YouTube was part of this group. I was part of a sports comedy group called 12 Angry Mascots. We were doing live shows in New York, end of 2008. And it was the Super Bowl 2009. And my partner and I we had this idea for a Super Bowl writer's room video. It was the idea of like, what if the Super Bowl was written? I mean, the joke was being made that like there's writers of the NFL scripted. And, this has just been in the ether, just in the zeitgeist. If you're a sports fan, there's no way, it's too perfect. This is scripted. So we actually created an NFL writers room around the Super Bowl, hired, I don't know if we paid our friends, just got a bunch of friends together, used ESPN, the magazine's offices where Neil worked, my partner Neil, after hours, kind of snuck in there, got a camera guy, found some lights from Home Depot, and it like had this really bootleg, low rent video that we shot and put it on YouTube. And I remember this. It was like I posted it maybe on a Friday, and then like the next morning, this is Super Bowl weekend, we posted it. So like Friday, the next Saturday morning, the game's on Sunday, it already had 200,000 views, like overnight. Oh, wow. Turns out back then, if you remember, they would curate the homepage of YouTube, and somebody at YouTube saw it. It was our first, I don't know how they even found these things back then. It was our new account, first video ever posted, but they found it, put it on the homepage of YouTube, and it was there for the whole weekend. And it got hundreds of thousands of views. And we were like, holy shit, like it's that easy? Like this is what it is to be posting on YouTube? Great. So then we, made another one and it got like 200 views. I mean, we learned pretty quickly that was incredibly lucky. But it did inspire us to kind of do more of that series. We made a whole series around this NFL writers room. We sold it to ESPN, actually, Comedy Central. And then the story ends with us getting ripped off by an ad agency just last year, which I don't need to get into, but I've already talked about on something else. But I don't know if did you see me post about this?
I didn't see you post about this, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, the NFL writers room videos that they made this year with Keegan, Michael Key.
Yeah, the Kelseys, the mom, the whole thing.
Yeah. Anyway, they ripped me off. Whatever. It happens. That's what creative ad agencies do. They're very creative. They're very creative in how they take other people's ideas and steal them.
I think you first hit my radar when, I don't remember if it's Vulture or Split Sider, whatever version that was. But
wow.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that website, Split Sider.
It got swallowed up by Vulture and became a comedy vertical, and I think they just like shuttered it, right?
Really? God, yeah. No, oh my God, Split Sider. I mean, the Aviary. Do you remember that? The Apiary?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Apiary.
Yeah.
Apiary was big. All Things Comedy, ATC, all that stuff.
I think All Things Comedy's still around. I think
still around. Yeah.
Tied to it. Yeah.
So you saw something posted on Split Sider?
Yeah, I don't remember which one was first, but I do remember taking fake book covers on the subway being the one that really, like, I still remember to this day.
Yeah.
You're holding titles like How to Hold a Fart In, 101 Penis Lengthening Tips.
Very, very mature.
Well, I was going to ask, like, what made you want to document like harmless pranks like that?
I don't know. I mean, I just had the idea, I was reading, and I it's been 8 years, I think, that since that video came out, but there were some, I guess I got interviewed at the time around that. And the story was that I was reading a book that my friend had written called How to Be Black. His name is Baratunde Thurston. Yeah. Yep. So I was reading Baratunde's book on the subway, How to Be Black. And I'm a white guy, clearly. And I was sort of getting side-eye by some people. You know, the title of the book is How to Be Black in big letters. Black book, white lettering. And I was like, yeah, interesting. Like, people notice what people read. And I've always noticed what people are reading on the subway, when people used to read in the subway. So I was just playing with the idea of, what if I had some crazy titles to some crazy books that I made look real, and let's get some reactions. So that's what I did. I mean, it's, you know, it's and the whole pranking thing. Yeah, I like the way you call them harmless pranks, because I sort of pride myself. I've done a bunch of these types of man on the street videos, if you want to call them pranks, but the idea is not to really piss people off the way that, like, there's a whole genre now of these prank videos where it seems the goal seems to be just to ruin people's days.
Yeah, just or flat out victimizing people. It's not
victimizing or actively getting into fist fights, like, as if that, you know, I guess that does get views, people like that. But actually, I still haven't done this video. Maybe it's too late because that sort of phase is over. But I wanted to do another video where I just would, you know, there'd be like sort of a hidden camera, and I would just stop people and be like, yo, chill, it's just a prank, yo. It's just a prank. Like, it's just random people. Yo, it's just a prank. Like, as if they're reacting to me, but they wouldn't be. Because that's such a trope in those videos where they have to go, yo, chill.
Yeah.
Because it escalates to that point. But my videos never got to that point. Because that wasn't the point. The point was just to have a little harmless fun. So yeah, I like the harmless. I never called them harmless pranks, but that's what they were. And I did do a bunch of them, and, you know, some of my favorites are the ones that are least seen by people, but that's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah, the covers were great in that video, but what obviously, like, the reactions are what makes it. How did you go about, like, capturing those without blowing your cover? Because you had other people filming, right? Right.
So I had two camera guys, and they would sort of be cross each other, and they would, you know, they had camera. I mean, we weren't even, this was 2016. Like, we weren't even filming on our phones. I guess now
actual video camera.
Yeah. They had actual video cameras, DSLRs that they sort of put in their bags and kind of hid with a code or something. And they would just position. They were great camera people that I've used, you know, for a bunch of my videos, Ryan. We just, you know, it was up to them. Cause again, I couldn't see, I wasn't even looking around. So I was engrossed in my book, and I was just hoping every time we did a take, you know, we'd get off the subway, like, did you get anybody react? Did we get anything good? They'd be like, yeah, we got something over here. But they had to kind of whip around and just find people. So that was challenging for them, but we got some good reacts.
You mentioned that you had other videos that maybe you're more proud of that didn't go viral like that. Is there something specific that comes to mind?
I had a video that I still love, and it's still very, I think, relevant, but it was just going around Williamsburg. This is, again, probably around 2016 when I was doing a lot of these. And because I lived in Williamsburg, New York in 2008. And then I was in Greenpoint in 2009. And, you know, so I'd sort of seen, I was basically, I'm not calling myself an OG by any means, because people were the, late 90s. And of course, this is like the gentrifying class I'm talking about also. But I was a second wave, maybe early third wave, like, hipster gentrifier, if you want to call it. But it still was, that all, like, I'm in Greenpoint now. And the difference in the last, 8 years is astounding. I mean, it was happening then too, in the last 10 years. But all the glass and steel high rises, all on Kent and the waterfront, it's wild what's happened there. And that wasn't there initially. So I filmed myself, again, hidden camera. I had cameramen sort of hang out back behind the buildings, put a microphone in, and I would go up to the doormen of these buildings, go up to the lobby of these buildings, and just ask them, like, so what kind of monster do I have to be to afford to live here? I'd be like, what kind of, like, absolute douchebag do you need to be? Like, am I, like, do I have to be a drug kingpin? Like, what is it? How do you? And I was just sort of like, just sussing out, like, who can afford to, because, like, the prices are also just so crazy with the rents. And And I got some reactions. So like people were laughing because again, these are the doormen I'm talking to. These are the people who don't have the money. And they're like, yeah, bro, like, I don't know, man. Like they're kind of commiserating with me. Like, yeah, dude, like, it's they're like, we can't live here. And I'm like, is there a yoga room I can rent out for like $200 a month? Like, can I just live on the mat? Can I? And I just kind of went around to different buildings and sort of try to suss out like how can I afford to live? Or can I marry into the building? Is there some dowager, some rich widower that can that I can marry into? But it was basically how can I like afford to live here without actually affording to live there? And I just always thought that was a fun one, and we had some really great hidden camera reactions from real people in that one too. A little political also, which I kind of like to make a point. If I can make a point with the video, that helps. So I like that one, Ryan.
I'm going to go find that one. Is it still up? You have a channel up?
I think it's called like, I don't know, unaffordable housing maybe. I think it's called unaffordable housing. Running late show, back to my running late show days. Yeah.
I shall track it
like
down.
10,000 views or something,
Maybe we can get it to 11,000.
I did a video called pickup offline dating. I basically stood on the street corner with flyers that I printed out of like a dating profile of myself, and I was just handing out flyers like, "Hey, anybody want to date me?" or that kind of thing. And then someone commented, who's like, "I run a dating service for men. I help men how to pick up women. Basically, it's like a pickup coach." He's like, "I think you'd be a good client." And I said, "All right, well, this is gonna be interesting." So I messaged that guy. I said, "Can we do a video where I sort of interview to be part of your club?" It was called like Wolf and Roses, some kind of lame name, some pretentious douchey name like the Wolf, the Brotherhood of the Wolves. And so I sat in his apartment and we kind of filmed that whole interview, which was a very like Daily Show type of thing where I was kind of just taking the piss, and he didn't really quite understand it, which I loved. I loved that video. He was a nice guy. I feel bad. I mean, he was a nice guy, and maybe he did understand what I was doing, but. And then I think I did a follow up where I actually tried to use his techniques. But no, I did. Listen, man, I'm glad you're talking to me too, because I feel like in just talking about my old videos, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I need to start making more. And I just got my haircut today. Okay, yeah. I'm going back to the 2010s with this haircut. I had previously very long hair that I was growing out living in Los Angeles, but I'm back in New York. I'm trying to get that mojo back, and it's a whole new world now with TikTok and all these kids doing man on the street stuff. And, it's time to take back the crown, Ryan. Because I was doing this stuff in 2012. I was doing this when these kids were in short pants, these TikTokers. So it's time to show them that the OG's back, baby.
It's time for you to get back in the game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing in New York? Did you move out for a specific opportunity, or?
I'm kind of just cooling my heels a little bit, I met a girl who lives out here, so I'm staying with her and kind of figuring out, do I get up my own place here? Do I stay in New York? There's some other opportunities in other cities possibly, so I can't quite commit fully to New York again. I'm waiting to hear back on a few things that might take me back to California, maybe even Texas. So some things are cooking, but in the meantime, I'm here. My parents are still where I grew up in New York, so I'm a New Yorker. It's just good to be home, seeing old friends, and like I said, I really am. I've got a bunch of ideas that I've been writing down, brainstorming, and I am ready to go live once again with some new series that, I guess I'll throw them on TikTok now. I mean, YouTube, I fell off with YouTube, but I was reconnected with another friend of mine, Noah, who's a content creator, and he's telling me like YouTube, man, that's where it is right now. Like,
it is, especially if you're making the stuff for TikTok, you can put it on YouTube Shorts too. I mean, you can really
YouTube Shorts. I know, dude. I need to, if anybody out there wants to be like my social media producer, please reach out, because I think as much as I was doing it back then on my own, I was editing on my own, but I never had a strategy, dude. I was throwing this stuff up there. I wasn't doing it for money. I mean, what was the money back then? Like, there's like, I get like maybe $200 every few months in Google ads from like having millions of views on the videos. Like it's not about the money. I was just throwing things up there for fun and hoping that maybe this would lead to maybe someone sees it. Maybe, that never really panned out. But it's funny, even like the viral book covers things. Like I thought, oh, maybe I'll get hired at Jimmy Kimmel. Maybe I'll get a late night gig.
Yeah.
No one ever reached out. Isn't that weird?
Now you don't need them to reach out. Now you just make
I
it
still
on the
kind of wish
platforms and
they
you make
would.
the money that way.
Well,
Oh, okay.
right. Well, okay. That's the key thing now. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
I'm in this old school mentality of like, I have to be discovered. You got to put this stuff out. But now, no, you can just do it yourself. There's no gatekeeper. There's no Jimmy Kimmel. Like, TV's dead. Like, this is the TV. This is what people are watching. So if I can make my own show on YouTube, I can produce it up, make it look nice, or not at all. People don't even want nicely produced things anymore. That's a whole.
I don't think it needs to look nice. No, it doesn't at all. It just has to be good content.
It just has to be good content. But it's taking me some time. Obviously, I'm late. I was early, and now I'm late. I feel like so. Timing has never been my strong suit, but all things in all good time, as the great Jerry Garcia used to sing. And I think now is as good a time as any to start getting back into this. So I do have some really fun ideas that I'm ready to test out and see if anybody's interested in watching them.
All right. Speaking of opportunities, let's get into the HQ trivia stuff. Like, how did that come about?
That was a very simple audition process. The reason I was considered in the first place to audition is because the guy I interned with, this is a lesson in networking, if you want to call it that, or just being nice. It's just being fun to work with, a good guy to work with. Because back in 2008, my first ever real post-college, I call it a job, but I didn't get paid. It was an internship with The Onion. And I loved it. I was like the number one place I wanted to be. Huge Onion fan. It was a dream internship in the city. And I, met some, people that I was interning there with are now, Chris Kelly went on to be a SNL co-head writer. The other two, his show on, it was so funny. He created that. And, so many people have gone on to write for television and be editors and producers, directors. Anyway, a guy was the photo editor back then. Funny guy, nice guy. We just stayed in touch on Facebook, and we're friends. We invited me to parties or whatever. And I saw on Facebook one day that he was looking for an animator, and I was living with an animator at the time. And I connected my roommate Russ to this guy Nick, and he hired Russ, and that company turned out was the company that eventually built HQ. So a few months later, I get a call from Nick saying, "Hey, I'm working with these guys. They founded Vine. They're doing this new game show on the phone. You interested?" And I was like, I was kind of ready to move to LA, frankly. It was just 2017, springtime, and I just like gave up my apartment, and I was really planning to kind of stay at home for a few months, save some money, and move to LA in the fall. Like one final summer in New York, and then move to LA. And then I got this audition in April 2017, and got it. Just out of like 20 something people, they decided I was the best one. And then I was staying in New York. I had to like get a new apartment. It was a whole thing, but yeah, that's just changed my life, man. It was crazy. It was, but it was purely like, had I not, worked with this guy in 2008 and sort of stayed in touch, it's very possible that he would not have, that I would not have been considered for this HQ thing at all.
How quickly did you know it was like a thing, like that it was really taking off?
Fairly quickly, because even when we were about 1,000 people, and it was very exciting to go from even 50 people playing to 1,000. Every single game when we launched that thing, when there were like 50 people, first of all, the chat was already like, "This is awesome. This is amazing." 50 people. It was a small sample, but you're like, okay, that's nice. The people playing this enjoy it. They clearly told their friends told their friends, and it was a word of mouth. But we were at 1,000 people, so maybe like a couple weeks into this thing. And I'm sitting outside in Soho having lunch with my cousin. This guy comes up and he said, "Hey, man, I'm a huge fan. I play your game." I'm like, "You're a huge fan? Like, what? Like this is a brand new thing, and there are 1,000 people playing. Like how am I even encountering one of the 1,000 people playing this thing already? But that was the indication that like, holy cow, like people connected with it very deeply, very quickly.
Do you have a theory on why?
With me, and I don't know. I guess the theory is, thinking back on the time, this is 2017. There wasn't a ton of live streaming. I mean, there was Twitch, I guess, and like the guy Justin TV, like people doing their live casting, right? But this is a very different. This is like this produced game show, appointment scheduling. We're giving out money. There's this guy up there talking like this. Who is this guy? Where's he coming from? Never heard of him before. I wasn't a celebrity at the time, and it just must have. Again, I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of the players, but it must have just been like a very novel experience and a very almost punk experience, kind of like this is underground, and if you were one of the early people seeing it, and you were probably winning at that point because there were so few people, the prizes were actually, you were probably winning $20, $50, $100, like, because there it wasn't 12 cents when it got diluted to the point with all these people playing. It was actually people were winning $100 like for nothing, just free money to answer some trivia questions. It was fun. It was a fun game. So all those reasons. I mean, but the fact, like October of that year. So we're talking, we launched end of August. So it was August, September. So 2 months in, Halloween, I had people, at least like 5 or 6 people dress up as me for Halloween and then tag me on Instagram. And that also was like, wait a minute, this is like a brand new thing that really hadn't caught on. Maybe like 30,000 people, 40,000 people in the game at that point. And I'm getting people dressing me for Halloween. Like that was also a sign early on. Like this is making, it's resonating deeply with people.
Yeah, it was really weird in that like you were watching it by yourself on your phone, but there was also that communal aspect that I think we were really getting at the time. Like
right, and I was not a Twitch user. I was not a big internet user in that way. So I wasn't even familiar with chat. Like I didn't know that like chat was a character. Chat is like such a huge component, like we all know it is now. People, like the chat is the lifeblood of these streams. And to me, it was like, who are these maniacs? Like, I don't think I've ever commented on a single thing in my life. Aside from a friend's, engagement or mazel tov or something. Like I don't comment on random videos. I don't engage in chats. I don't even like have tweet conversations. I'm just like not the friendliest person I think I ever, but I know people, have internet friends and would go on like long Twitter and make Twitter friends. Like I never got into that whole world of just online, other than my chat, my 6th grade pen pal. But like, I just was not engaged. I just don't engage in the internet.
I think the charm for a lot of people was also you seem to be going off the cuff with like the Micro Machines patter and the clever puns and all that. But I imagine there was plenty of prep work involved. Like what was that daily grind like on your end?
Yeah, it was, it was, like I'm the type of person that, you hire me to do something and these people were it was like really just kind of a job too. Like, hey, I'm making money. I'm doing this cool thing. Like I want this to be good, and I'm not the type, and again, I wasn't, if they hired some celebrity to come in, like, all right, maybe this person wouldn't give a crap really. They're not invested in it personally. There's just a paycheck and they're just like, all right, I'll read the thing and leave. For me, I was so fully invested in this because I saw the opportunity too. I'm like, I'm the face of the show that is catching on and I'm getting outreach. People are messaging me. Like I'm hearing from fans. All of a sudden I have fans. Like I didn't really have fans before. I had my stand-up career and I made those videos and that the book covers, like that went viral and I had press around that. I had some guy from France come and film a thing for his French show. And there were news outlets interested and I was getting outreach there, but this is a whole different thing, and I was like, I'm contracted to do this, for a few months, and then I got re-signed another few months. So I was like, this could be a steady gig, and this could be like my show. So I was putting everything into it and taking it very seriously and being prepared. And I do that in all my work, really. Like, all the things I was doing on my own, making those videos. No one told me to make that football video for the Super Bowl and put it on YouTube. No one told me to go out in the street and do these. Like, it was just purely my own self-starter ambition to like make something good and make something funny. So I was bringing all that into HQ, and I guess it showed, and it paid off because it was. I mean, I would certainly review the questions. We review the questions every day. I was writing the questions in the very beginning, so I was really hands-on in that regard. But talk about the order of the questions, make the easier ones and go harder. Maybe that one's too hard. Let's move that, and then okay, what kind of jokes can I make? And I would sort of sketch out some joke ideas and write things out. A lot of it was improvised, but I certainly let's put a bullet point there because I want to make that joke there, or mention this there, make that reference here, and but I put the time into it for sure.
What was it like? Because you've performed in front of like plenty of live audiences and you like receive that real-time feedback, but performing in front of, I guess you're performing in front of way more people, but you could not feel their feedback. Yeah. How was that different?
Well, for my stand-up shows, it wasn't much different. I mean, I was just performing for myself most of the time. There was not a lot of people in the room in those shows. But no, this was, yeah. I mean, look, like the huge part of stand-up in any kind of live performance is this exchange of energy with the audience. It's a little different when you're in a room just talking to a camera and there's no laughter, there's no reaction. Even like producer's not, we were trying to make it professional. Like it wasn't like what's it called, Talk Soup, where like the people are laughing behind the camera, which had its own charm to it for sure. But this was just, I'm talking to the camera. The idea is like I'm talking to the void. And I had to just, in my mind, I'm thinking like, I know this is a good line. Like, I just had the confidence that like what I'm doing is good and funny. That's all it came down to. It's like, I'm going to trust that this is going over well. And I would watch the shows back sometimes. But okay, well, people didn't. Oh, someone got mad at that. And I got some emails too, man. I mean, for stuff like, like I guess I called Boston. I guess I made some reference to Boston being a racist city, which is again no original idea of mine. And some cop took umbrage, personal. He's like, "I'm a cop in Boston. How dare you call us racist?" It's a whole long thing. It's like, Jesus, dude. There's evidence out there. Like Google, but like Boston police, black man. Unarmed, Google, unauthorized stop and search. I remember Henry Louis Gates being like questioned at his own house. Like, this is not, I'm not like casting just blind aspersions here. Like, dude, there's evidence. I'm sorry. Yes. So, but no, I would get feedback sometimes, but for the most part, it was just again, just assuming that everything's going well. And you have to, obviously you're not pausing for laughter. You have to just keep the patter up, just keep the energy up. And it definitely was a skill that I kind of honed that I never really prepared for, but it just came naturally.
What did that technical setup look like? Because I guess you could probably like film that in a closet if you wanted to, right?
It practically was. And I did post on my Instagram recently some photos I just discovered. Again, my friend Noah was up at his place last month, and he is a photographer, was friends with the guy Nick, who got who got me the audition, and he visited. This is wild. We checked the dates too. He actually visited the studio in Soho the day before the Sweet Green article came out, which sort of changed the trajectory of HQ. We went from like 90,000 people at that point, November 21, 2017, to 1 million people New Year's Eve 6 weeks later. So like that was when just the fuel hit the fire. But his thing was dated November 20th. So he was there the day before that and photographed behind the scenes shots. He was in the studio. So there, and he let me post them. So I posted them, just recently, and you can see it was practically a shoebox. I mean, I was stepping over C-stands to get in position. I could probably touch the walls if I put my hands out. It was an incredibly narrow, small space. Got really hot in there when the summer was hot. We made it work. He didn't need much room. He had green screen, lights, and a little room for a producer, and that was it. But it was cramped. It was cramped in
Man.
there.
Were you able to take that on the road? Like if you needed to film somewhere else, could you just kind of pack it up and take it somewhere?
I always thought we should, and I think, I mean, there were a lot of missed opportunities with HQ, but one of them, I was like, why aren't we doing this? When the thing was so popular, we could have been doing college tours. We could have been going live from different places, doing live shows, like go live with the show and then have, a meetup or something. We never did that. We did it in Minnesota for the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
We didn't have to take it like a kit necessarily. You took, I guess, like other production facilities had their own lights and their own setups and their own cameras and things. I guess we would take our own computer with the software and maybe the iPad for a prompter. But we could have done it frankly anywhere, but we kept it to that studio for pretty much every show. Ended up going to Australia. We also ended up going to London to do the show with The Rock. So yeah, I think they brought some equipment there because we were using like a hotel room for that. Like that was not a production setup. It just depended, but no, mostly it was all confined to that space in Soho.
You mentioned the Sweet Green incident. For those that weren't online for that phenomenon, we should probably tell that story. You were easily like the biggest internet star during HQ Trivia's rise, but you weren't really doing any press. And when you finally did, it became a whole thing. Can you talk about that Daily Beast interview and I guess like the aftermath of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a strange, just like the situation where, like you said, it was starting. HQ was catching on. This is October now. There's like the first article I think about HQ was October 17th. I mean, again, I was kind of into this deep and obsessive about it. So and there was a tracker of all the articles. So I remember like the dates and times, but TechCrunch writes about it. And then, some other, the Cheddar News gets us to come down and we're live on Cheddar, me and the two founders, and The Verge writes about it. And so like the tech blogs were writing about it, but in all the articles, my name wasn't mentioned. Okay. I wasn't like running the PR. It was my boss who was like running his own PR and managing all of that. And I think in my contract, actually, it said like, you're not allowed to like a gag order on media. Everything has to go through me. So I would start getting outreach from reporters and I would have to forward everything to my boss and he just quashed it or he did the interview or, but so all these articles coming out, like literally my name's not mentioned at all. But it started just growing to the point where, people were like, what's the story with this? It kind of like bred the mystery around me a little bit. Like, who is this guy? Why aren't we hearing about this guy? Like, where did he come from? Where did he go to school? Where did he grow up? Like just basic questions. So finally, this reporter, Taylor Lorenz at the Daily Beast, wanted to know those exact things. And we had mutual friends, a few mutual friends, some other comedians, and they emailed me and they would say, hey, my friend Taylor wants to write about you. Like, I guess Taylor realized through Facebook we had some mutuals. So she reached out to her mutuals to get to me. And I was like, you know what? This sounds like it's not like some stranger. It's someone that at least it's a mutual and this seems legit. And it sounded like they just wanted to do a profile, like, again, basic questions. And I thought, okay, you know what? Enough of this gag order. Like, I'm not talking about if you work in tech, like employees aren't supposed to talk about like some software they're working on or some proprietary information about whatever tech or whatever app software they're working on. I get that for proprietary reasons. You don't want to be blabbing about, that has to be controlled, right? You can't, if you're running a tech company, you have to keep a tight lid on who's talking to the media about certain things, right? That makes sense. But for this instance, I'm not on the tech side of things. Like, it's a different thing. This is a media tech hybrid, and this is almost a first of its kind thing. And someone's, no one reaches out to a Google engineer and like, well, what's your life like? Tell me about tell me about where you went to school or where you eat for lunch. Like, no one cares about some anonymous L5. But for me, people cared because I was the face of it. So I felt, you know what? Screw it. Like, I'm entitled to talk about myself. I'm not going to talk about the company. I'm not giving away secrets, but I can tell people where I eat lunch, which is what this reporter Taylor wanted to know. So I told her I ate at Sweet Green and I went to Johns Hopkins and I grew up from New York, and the basic fluff profile piece. After I gave the interview, 10-minute conversation, I forwarded to Russ. Then I said to my boy, hey man, just heads up, I did speak to this reporter. I didn't tell him anything about the business. It's all about me, but you do want to know about what's going on. I'm going to keep in the loop here. So there you go, Daily Beast. And unbeknownst to me, he calls the Daily Beast that night and says, you cannot run this article. I'm going to fire Scott if you run this thing. And this is all, I only find out about this the next day when Russ calls me into a conference room as I'm about to host a show. He says, I've got Daily Beast on speakerphone. He's like, I got to report on Daily Beast. They're telling me that I threatened to fire you. Just say it isn't true. And I'm like, well, yeah, I wasn't privy to the conversation. I didn't hear anything. So I was like, where are you? I was like, hey, Scott here. Yeah, no, I don't know where you're getting this from. Like, yeah, Russ is going to fire me. What are you talking about? I don't know where you're getting any of this from. And then Taylor on the phone with the editor says, oh, no, we have Russ on the record last night saying if you run this piece, he's going to fire you. So that's when I learned about this whole thing. And then I looked at Russ and I was just like, my heart just dropped, man. I mean, it was talk about a betrayal, talk about like a shock to the system. I mean, it was totally, I've had very few moments in my life where this guy is just bold-faced lying to me about, it's a two-parter, right? He's telling me now to lie to these journalists who are sworn to their ethics. Like, tell them it's not true, knowing he knows it is true. He did it last night, right? So he's telling me to lie on his behalf about a thing that is like so hurtful, right? It's just this double whammy of like, who does, like, what are you? In that moment, I'm looking at this guy thinking like, this is sociopathic shit. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, you're a monster. Like, this is monster behavior. You know what I mean? Like, abusive in a way. Like, what are you talking about? You're trying to get me to lie for you about a thing that is like, like take my livelihood away. You're going to fire me. Like, what? Like, bananas. Talk about like a hostile work environment. We didn't even have an HR at this point. Okay. So that anyway, they ended up running the article, but the headline was run this article and I'm firing. It's like CEO threatens to fire us. Basically, the article became, instead of a fluff piece about me, which would have gone under the radar, it became this thing like, I'm going to fire the host of the hottest app. And it just took off. It was like Twitter ate it up. It was trending on Twitter all weekend. It was nuts. Like Free Scott was trending, this hashtag Free Scott. They thought I was like being held, against my will, held captive. So it was all about, because and this, again, I didn't mention this, but Sweet Green was the big sticking point. I guess Russ, my boss, had said, we don't have a deal with Sweet Green. You can't run this article. Scott mentioned Sweet Green. You can't mention that. Like, again, just like, what? Where is this guy coming from? So, I mean, it ended. I ended up having to kind of do this PR stunt. They hired a crisis PR overnight. They're like, we got to fix this. And they talked me into be the team player, Scott. Take a photo with Russ at Sweet Green. He was going to buy you a salad and we'll post the photo. And Russ had his little mea culpa. I'm an overstressed, overworked tech CEO. It happens. I'm sorry, But it was at that point, it was already, it had already gone viral and it ended up being the best thing for the app. Like we went from 90,000 to 1 million in less than 6 weeks. Like it would not have taken off that way without the virality of the Daily Beast article.
I remember it kind of changed the way I saw the show for a period. Like I was concerned this was a hostage situation, as you said. I started to think like, is this guy talking so fast because he has a gun to his head?
There was nothing like that of the sort, obviously. I was there of my own free will and it was enjoyable for me. Up until that point, it definitely got weird, definitely got a little weird after that. But, again, the show just kept growing and getting bigger and bigger. And then the floodgates were open, by the way. Once that article is out, and then it was like, well, screw it. The gloves are off. I'm going to talk to this person, that person. I'm getting interviewed and, Adweek put me on their cover of their magazine and Time called me one of the faces of the year and all these things. So it all worked out in the end. Unintended consequences, right? Like Russ didn't want me to, I don't know what the motivation was. He didn't want me to get famous. He wanted to control the narrative, whatever it was. Didn't work. Sorry, guy.
So when you eventually decided to change up the baseball show, it sounds like your intent wasn't to fully leave HQ.
No. Not at all. And, that was a whole thing. So now we're fast forwarding to the end when I left, and it was just a matter of, we're glossing over a lot of things. Again, there was a documentary. It got pulled off of Max. Trying to get that back on the air. We'll see if that happens. But there's a podcast about it, articles about it, but there was a change of leadership. There was 2 co-founders initially. Russ was the CEO. He gets removed. The other co-founder gets installed as CEO. He unfortunately dies from an accidental drug overdose, basically murdered by these people who were putting fentanyl in drugs and actually went to jail. They caught these guys who sold them the drugs, and they're in jail. Practically, murderers for doing that. And then Russ was put back in CEO role, and it was like this was the end of 2018. So the whole thing was just falling apart. We thought things were on track. We were going to get better with Colin at the helm. He dies. Russ gets put back in, and that was it for me. That was like the nail in the coffin. Well, why is this guy the CEO again? He already ruined the company. So like, I was ready to get out of there at that point. A lot of people were leaving the company at that point. It was a very large exodus, and an opportunity came along. Thank God. I mean, the timing just it's all about timing in life, and in this case, the timing worked out in my favor. Job opportunity with paid better, more exciting for me at the time. Is baseball. I love baseball. It was just like everything lined up, and I took it. But I didn't want to leave. I wanted to do both, and I could have done both. And I actually found an old email that I sent to the board of HQ. I sent to the board because I wanted to make sure that they knew what was going on, that they were about to lose me. Because I had asked, like, hey, can we keep me on Sunday nights? I was going to do my other show Monday through Friday. I had my weekends free. I'll take Saturday off, and I would do Sunday night, which was the biggest night of HQ anyway. The most money, the most viewers. So how perfect is that? You can have other hosts through the week, and you have the marquee show Sunday night, and you don't have to have a story about Scott leaving. There's no one has to know about any of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And all they had to do was just agree to like the once a week show. And they said no. And I emailed the board this whole long thing of how much I love this. And I don't want to leave. And this has been so important to me. But here's where things are. And they said, well, it's not our decision. What a decision's made, and I'll defer to them. And that was it. So my last show was March 26, 2019. Gilbert Godfrey was my co-host. Rest in peace. And I didn't get a full formal goodbye show either. That was also not afforded to me. So that was it. I did that show as if I was going to come back the next day, and I never came back. Yeah, I mean, and then less than a year later, the whole place went bankrupt. So it was heading there. I saw it, and it was sad. I told people in interviews back then. They said, "What's next for you? What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't want to do it. This is it. I'll do this next 20 years. This is the future." And in an alternate timeline, it's still going live. HQ is worth $10 billion. They're doing 20 different live stream shows. It's a massive network rivaling any of the big studios. I firmly believe that's happening in a parallel universe if there was different management, different leadership in place.
Yeah, I was going to ask, can you point to a specific like fork in the road moment? Because it did have all that promise, and it definitely could have gone.
It's purely a matter of just the worst possible person running this incredibly gifted company with so many talented people. I mean, everyone else in this company wanted, deserved to be there, had the skill set, was nice, fun to work with, nice people, good people. And then at the top was just a very toxic, very incompetent, ultimately. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And apparently, and all these things came out later. Oh, he worked at Twitter and he was fired from there for bad man. It was like no track record of this guy. Didn't go to business school. Doesn't why? And this is like a theme that we've seen in tech over the years, and maybe it's changing now. Maybe because of all these failures, of all these colossal failures, all these CEOs who by no rights should be CEO. Just because you have an idea for a company. And I learned this. I embarked on my own business a few years ago with a partner who, had a finance background, was older than me, new operations business. He's like, I'm the CEO. I'm like, yeah, okay. That makes sense. I what do I know about running a business? But it was my idea. You can have an idea, but if you're actually competent about what you're doing and you have a plan, the first plan should be, all right, this is a great idea. I'm not the person to run it. Let's go. Let's find a CEO, right? Or a COO. Let's get someone here who can actually manage people and lead a business. This guy didn't have any of those qualities whatsoever. And it's something we see time and time again. So like, you have so many examples of leadership in tech. It's like, well, Steve Jobs, okay, well, he was apparently hard to work with and he was arrogant and he had these issues, but he was brilliant. Mm-hmm. And he found other smart people to work with him. Like, you can't be an asshole and bad at your job. Like, you have to be either brilliant and competent and okay, you're an asshole, or you're super nice, but maybe you don't have the skill set. Okay, but you got it. You can't be all of the bad things in one person. And unfortunately, that's what we had. So, it's just not having, again, the vision, the leadership morale was an issue. Micromanaging was always an issue. Decisions just weren't getting made. Things weren't getting shipped. New games weren't out there. It was, and frankly, like, I guess it stems from the fact that you can almost say, like, the cop-out answer is, well, we're a victim of our own success. And, again, you could maybe chalk some of that up to it. The fact that this thing did go sort of viral out of their control. It wasn't a planned, progression to get this big that quickly. That's a shock to the system. And it definitely put a tax and a toll on, like, the engineers, instead of having but again, there was no plan to begin with. It was fully like, let's throw this thing against the wall and see if it sticks. Let's create this trivia show and just see what happens. There was no, holistic plan of, we're going to create a trivia show, but that's not the only thing we're going to do. We're going to have another a match show and a dating show and a judge show. And like, we're going to plan this all out in a word show. And we're going to have 10 shows by the end of the year. And we're going to stagger them. And when this one gets into 20,000 viewers, we're going to choose this next show. There could have been, in a different universe, like, someone who had that plan, a very, very, very tactical, plan. But this was like, hey, let's try this. Holy shit, it's working. Now it's so big, and now we have to put all hands on deck and make sure the servers are running and it's not going to crash, and all the resources went into just keeping this one thing going. And there wasn't even any resources or time to, like, build the next show. And to have that larger network idea, it was just ultimately, too little, too late at the end of the day with all that. But no, there's so many. I mean, we gave away too much money, and again, that was a decision that was made unilaterally to, like, keep raising the price, raising the amount of the prize when the data was showing, hey, well, actually, it's not correlating to more downloads or users with more money. Like, we could be saving ultimately millions of dollars were pissed away that could have been saved, had we not just given that away frivolously. So a lot of things, you can get into the weeds of it, but the big thing is there was no plan. There was just no real plan and no on the fly improvisational, like, okay, let's ramp up a plan quickly. Let's get the right people in place to go execute and build and ship. It just wasn't there.
Yeah, the money thing was always hilarious because after a certain point, people were not playing for the money.
Exactly.
If it was a 40-cent prize or a $4 prize, no one cares.
Exactly. It was like, and this was just, we had constant debates and discussions about, why, because they couldn't figure out why this was working so well. Is it because, like, you can argue there were flaws in the game. And I would argue there were major flaws in the gameplay, and we churned so many users because of that. You had to answer all 12 questions. You would get knocked out if you got something wrong, and you couldn't even keep playing. So, like, you had, like, millions of people, their experience of the game was, well, I'm out after Q2 or Q3, and there's nothing for me to do now. I can just watch other people win. Yeah. I can't even answer for fun. Like, so is that a good experience from a user's perspective? No. I mean, like, undeniably no. So, like, but again, this was built. It was, MVP, build quickly kind of thing. Let's just get a game out there. And then they eventually tweaked and made it so you can keep playing. And then they've made it so you win points. And then points in the coin. But again, all that shit just came far too late. If you were to start this thing over today, you could start it, the right way, I think, learning from these mistakes. So again, we were the first in the space. It was something we were all sort of learning what to do, but you would assume that like there would have been a bigger plan in place there, or just a more of a vision to execute it.
Was there ever a discussion, like as the ship continued to sink, about maybe you making a triumphant return? Like if they need to juice the numbers, that seems like a pretty simple way to do that.
Oh, I mean, no, there was. I never heard from them, and I frankly didn't want to. At that point, we exited on our terms. I cut ties, and it was like, I mean, it wasn't the best of terms. It was like these guys are denying me a farewell show. They're denying me the chance to continue on with them. And by the way, when it didn't, when I had to finally say, I have a new job, I'm no longer HQ, and I gave my thank yous, and I have a long Twitter post about, just thanking everybody and the gratitude of all, because it was really like, this is a chapter closing, and I have to sort of put the coda on that. So when I made that statement, that went viral. That was trending on Twitter. The Rock is commenting, yo, bro, like, stay strong. We'll work again together one day. Like, so that announcement, I mean, just like they completely underestimated. I don't know why they would think this. Because again, like anyone with two eyes would see, well, this is the star of the show, and you're just going to let him walk. I wasn't asking for $1 million. Like I mean, it was just like we keep the money as it like it wasn't about money. Like there was nothing about the negotiation or discussions other than pure spite. Like, okay, great, go. We don't need you. We'll succeed without you. Is what they thought. Okay.
Beyond Quiz Daddy, you famously reeled off quiz-themed nicknames for yourself during the show. Two of my favorites, Edward Quizzerhands, Carson Twice Daily. I'm sure you've thought of plenty more since your departure. If you were to do one more show, do you have something special you'd bring up?
Oh, boy. Someone used one. Oh, I wish I was prepared for this. Someone used one. And recently I did some other show, and it gave me an intro and used those names. And it was one that I never used. And I thought it was great. It's the 60 and 60. Maybe, again, I posted the video on my Instagram. You can find it. Damn it. It might have been, oh, you know what? I think it was a little like, maybe like the head of the Quizlamic state or something. It was a little like, oh, maybe, man, there's a reason why I didn't use that on HQ. It might have been the head of the Quizlamic state.
That's good.
Maybe enough time has passed since ISIS that I can bring that one back. One of my biggest regrets of the whole HQ experience was the fact that I didn't start my Quiz Daddies vintage thing like while I was on HQ. Not that my boss would have ever let me, God forbid, like promote myself or other things going on. That was totally forbidden. But at least
no brand deal with Quiz Daddies.
Yeah, people would have sort of stumbled upon it had I been posting on my own personal page. But the point is, in June of 2019, well, I left in March. In June, all of a sudden I got the idea, well, I've been collecting vintage clothing for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should and I always had the idea to open a store. I was like, I got to start selling this stuff, man. And again, I was like, I can donate the money to charity. And this is like a win-win because I got stuff just piling up in my place, like in storage for 20 years I've been collecting, like truly hoarder level stuff. Things that don't fit me. I bought them thinking I would sell them one day. Like I really thought before this whole HQ, before my even stand-up career at comedy, I was like, I love vintage clothing. I'm finding cool stuff when I would collect in high school and college. And so I would buy everything cool that I found for $1, $2. And then vintage got hot. And I'm like, great, I'll start selling. So I created an Instagram account, Quiz Daddies. And I started selling things through Instagram. And then 5 years later, I'm still, I had a store open up in Santa Monica. For 2 years, I ran that. Super fun, a lot of fun. I closed that in December, but I'm still, on Instagram with it at Quiz Daddies. I just sold a great Knicks t-shirt, a Patrick Ewing 1989 starter shirt. Go Knicks. Slight issue though is my inventory is in Los Angeles. I'm in New York, so I will urge anybody to go to quizdaddies.net if you want to go to that, or quizdaddies.com. I think I have both, and my Instagram. I do have a Shopify page. If you find something you like, you can buy it. I may not be able to ship it right away. I will be back in LA in a couple of weeks, so I will take any orders between now and Memorial Day. I will get your orders shipped by Memorial Day. But I have to figure out this inventory problem, Ryan, because I'm really torn between coasts right now, and it's hard to sell things when you're 3,000 miles away from them.
Do you have one regrettable sale that keeps you up at night, like something you parted with too early?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, shoot, I was selling Grateful Dead shirts.
Oh man!
Back again before all this stuff got hot, and I sold the Judas Priest '86 tour shirt back in college for $10. I was selling them in 2004, 3, 4 in school. So back then it was like, all right, well, 1988 was only 15 years ago from then. So it wasn't, to me, like vintage in 2003 was like 70s stuff, like really old school vintage, early. So it was just a different time. But yeah, I had some great pieces, man, that I sold in college. One I did get back. I sold a George Brett. It was the Pine Tar game. It was like a shirt commemorating the Pine Tar game, 1983, and a George Brett, Royals and Yankees, and I did sell it. And then I regretted it like almost instantly, so I got it back from the person too back then. Like a couple months later, I was like, can I just buy that back from you? And that's still in my collection because I do have like a collection of baseball-specific T-shirts. That's my personal collection. So I'm very glad I got that. I mean, a Pine Tar game, what an amazing shirt that is. It doesn't fit me, unfortunately, but it doesn't matter.
All right, let's jump into our stupid questions we ask everybody. Tab check, Scott. Right now, how many tabs do you have open on your browser?
Oh my God. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 on this Google Chrome browser. 17.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Is that typical?
Yeah. I never get, I've seen some where there's like the microscopic icons. Like, no, 17 to 20. This is probably a pretty typical range for me.
All right. When you open your social media apps, what are the algorithms feeding you right now?
Am I going to do this live right now? This could be.
Just open it up.
We started the conversation with porn. We might be going back to porn. No, let's see. I will say I'm barely watching porn anymore. For those curious, it's something I thankfully grew out of some years ago. Let's see. I'm getting some sports card stuff because I'm in the sports card world. I get a lot of these weird, like, I guess you call this like oddly satisfying or whatever the stuff is. Like someone's just cracking open rocks and finding fossil. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but I get a lot of stuff like that where it's just like, why? Like, what is this? I mean, these are garlic clothes being. I also get a lot of food stuff because I do, not that I do a lot of cooking, but a lot of food, nature, animals. There's a giant lobster. Some, like the strange stuff. Like, what is this Russian guy? Like, this is like, what is that? The weird internet stuff, and then fish. A lot of stuff from the fish shows at Sphere.
There we go.
That's a big part of my algo right now. Fish, baseball cards, weird nature. That's. I think it's a pretty healthy algo. I'm not seeing a lot of, like I said, the maybe on TikTok it's more, boobs, but thankfully for Instagram, I'm seeing it's a fairly PG. I'm not really on TikTok either. I don't use these apps. Okay, let's open TikTok. Do you want to really see this? This could be a whole different. I'm a different person on TikTok, maybe. What's going on? Where's my algo here? Oh God, keep editing video. Cancel. I have a video I didn't upload. There's my friend Jason Signs. He's drinking his wife's breast milk.
Oh,
That's good, Jason. There's sports card, more sports card stuff. There's comedy stuff. There's Tim Robinson, sports cards. So this is good. No boobs yet. So maybe my algo's been cleaned up. And again, that's the where do those come from? I don't know. I'm not searching for them, But there are a lot of boobs on the internet, and that's just I guess part of it.
It's whatever you stop and look at. That's what they're going to show you.
Well, God forbid.
Favorite accounts to follow on social media?
Favorite accounts on social media. I started following Fish on Film recently, which is a phenomenal account if you're in the music, not just Fish. Any kind of like indie jammy music. Fish on Film with a PH is great. This is my buddy Tony Zarrett, who's a hysterical comedian. I've been following him for years and collabing with him, and I'm a Patreon member as well. He does some of the funniest internet videos. What are some accounts? Let's see. Who do I follow? Again, I don't really interact that much. Mike Sachs is a very funny writer, and he's always posting really funny things on Instagram that I see. I'm mostly on Instagram when I'm using stuff. Clickhole. I still the basic comedy stuff. I'm seeing a lot of stuff from the print, the roast. Now I follow a lot of comedians, But for the unique things, I mean, baseball card vandals is a classic too.
Oh, that's a great one.
They do a lot of funny, vandalizing of baseball cards. Yeah, I follow all my favorite comedians and Found Footage Festival is also just a great Found Footage Festival are OG internet people, and they
Hell
do a
yeah.
lot of they find old VHS tapes and post clips. I like that stuff. The vintage retro, VHS.
What is a corner of the internet people might be surprised you're interested in?
Surprised that I'm interested. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I corner of the internet. Um, I do I live in the corners of the internet? I'm pretty mainstream with stuff, man. I'm not like a big, I'm not going on forums. I'm not going on, anything, any dark web. I don't do anything like that. I'm pretty vanilla with my internet. Let's see. Would you be surprised? Would you be surprised that I'm on MLB TradeRumors.com? Is that surprising? It shouldn't be surprising to anybody
Not
if you
at
know
all.
me.
No.
No, like there's nothing surprising. I don't think there's anything surprising about my internet tastes. It's fairly, fish.net, MLB Trade Rumors, Mets.com. Like it's pretty weird. I don't really, yeah, I try not to be, I don't go on Reddit. I'm not a Redditor. I'm kind of a lame boomer in that sense. I'm older than my years when it comes to the internet.
All right. What is the last
I listen
thing
to a
that
lot of
made you?
podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh, what podcast is at the top of your feed?
Oh, The Best Show with Tom Sharpling, Evil Men. My friends in Toronto have a very funny podcast called Evil Men. Office Hours Live with Tim Heidecker.
Oh, that's great.
This is cool. The Ben and Emil show, which used to be called Trillionaire Mindset, which is these two guys that are doing a finance thing. But I ended up playing softball with Ben back in LA. He joined my softball team. I was back in LA last month, and I'm like, this guy looks familiar. After the game, we're having drinks and talking, and I'm like, oh, you're Ben from that show that I listened to. And I started. So he relaunched his show. It's called the Ben and Emil Show. It's a fun show. David Cross, one of my favorite comedians, has a new podcast called Senses Working Overtime. Started listening to that. That's fun. Yeah, I listen to a lot of Trapo Trap House. I listen to it's your standard white guy indie indie stuff.
Sounds like you have a lot of comedy in your feed. What is the last
Yeah.
thing that made you truly laugh online?
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing every day online. The last thing that made me laugh. I mean, I just was Tom Sharp is one of my favorite people in the world. He hosts The Best Show, and I haven't listened to this week's episode yet. He hosts a weekly 3-hour show, but he posted I guess he was doing like a fake stand-up act, or he released his own comedy special, and he put out a trailer for this comedy special that's like a parody of every bad stand-up trailer you see now with it's also called Joke Mind Virus. Which is so good. Joke Mind Virus. That's the name of his stand-up special. It's like he's doing like a parody of like your Joe Rogan-esque comedian. So the trailer of it's black and white, very gritty, him doing like a voiceover, vaping while he's walking through the office. That made me laugh today.
All right, let's go to the dark side. What was your most scarring moment on the internet, if you can bring yourself to disclose it?
Oh my God, scarring. Scarring. I mean, jeez. I mean, the lemon party, does that count? All those
You're the second person to name that one. So
yeah. I mean, that was
people.
when every time you got one of those things back in the day, that jumps to mind. Two girls, one cup. That sticks with me. That's a classic. I mean. Yeah, I don't know. I've tried to avoid like the 4chan stuff. I don't want to see any decapitations or anything. There's a lot of scarring things on the internet, but probably, yeah. No, one of the most scarring things I saw recently was not even on the internet, but it was basically it was a documentary called Sick, about Bob Flanagan, and this guy was like a sadomasochist. Anyway, that was scarring. the things he did to his genitalia with hammers and nails. I'll leave it at that.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I would expect to find on a 4chan, but I saw it in a critically acclaimed documentary. It's actually a very good documentary, but
okay.
Neither here nor there.
When you need to get away, how do you pry yourself away from your devices or log off?
I mean, that's easy. I got my dog. I walk the dog, although sometimes I'll be on the phone walking the dog. I'll read. I'll read a book. I still like to read a lot. So it's hard to multitask with the phone and the book. That I find that reading a magazine, New Yorker, reading a book kind of takes you off your phone. So that's a old standby.
Where would you be without the internet?
I ask myself this a lot. I'd be because again, the internet kind of made me. As much as I sort of dislike the internet and wish that I didn't exist in many ways, my career would be completely different. So where would I be? Would I be in the club still? Would I be trying to get that late night spot? I mean, without the internet, again, the culture as we know it, let's say in the 90s, would have sort of been the same, right? So like, again, as a stand-up comedian, when I started, the goal was to get the spot on Premium Blend, Comedy Central, or a late night with Letterman or Conan. Like that was the goal in my head and every comic's head. And now that's not the goal. No one cares about that anymore. Now you don't need that. Now you could be my friend Sam Morrell, who puts the stuff on TikTok and gets 1 million followers and sells out every place in the country and he puts his own specials out. Like you could just you're your own club, you're your own brand, you're your own network, and like so I wouldn't have to use the internet. What am I trying to say? Basically, I would probably be doing what comics did in the 80s and 90s still. It's just like you got to just hit the clubs and try to get the TV show, try to get those spots. I'd probably be doing that, frankly.
Okay. Yeah, Sam crushes it with those crowd work clips.
The crowd work stuff, yeah. But I'd probably be miserable too, because that's a miserable life, I think, to be doing to be striving in that way. But who knows? I'm still kind of miserable. No, I'm happy now, Ryan. I'm practicing gratitude. I'm very happy. I saw a great, by the way, I don't know we're wrapping this up, but check this out on the internet. This is my pick to click. Happiness by Max Joseph, a new documentary that just hit yesterday on YouTube. Max Joseph, brilliant filmmaker. He's made a lot of good stuff, but Happiness is his new thing. I just saw a screening last night of the first 3 episodes. Cannot recommend it enough. It'll make you happy.
About? Is it about being happy and gratitude?
It's about him diving into the idea of what makes us happy and the biochemistry of it all. And he goes to Denmark, the happiest place in the world. He's just doing a deep dive on what it means to be happy and how people are happy, why people are happy. And it honestly did, change. In one screening, I like, it sounds glib to say, well, it's easy to be happy, but I know it's not for a lot of people because we're having all these mental health crises. But if you watch this documentary, you actually can learn about the brain chemistry. And I think you actually can for all of us who sort of think about things in terms of metrics and data, like a lot of us do now, there's something going on with this company called Matter Neuroscience, which sort of supported the production of the film, I should say. It was sort of a sponsored. I don't know if it's a sponsor, but anyway, Matter Neuroscience is working on how to like quantify happiness so we can actually see what makes us happy. There's an app they have apparently. I'm all in on it. I'm going to download the app and get deeper into this too. So I recommend that.
All right. Love a good doc rec. All right. Last question. Yeah. What's the one thing on the internet you'd save if it all went bye-bye tomorrow?
I like turtles. That's it. That's all I need.
It's the best.
I like
Just
turtles.
Put it on a VHS and run it on a loop in your house.
Yeah, that guy's the best. I do like turtles. That spoke to me because I had a turtle growing up, Julie, who passed away recently. R.I.P. to her. Oh. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll close on a somber note, I guess. Thank you, Scott, for this discussion.
A somber note with my dead turtle. She lived 30 years. Okay, she was supposed to. The fact that she was still alive up until last year, when I got her in 1993, is insane. So, Julie,
she had a good run.
It's not somber at all. I'm like, God bless you, Julie. You did it. You're going to outlive me, practically.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for this discussion and for your contributions to the internet. This is Ryan Perry saying log off. The internet will still be there when you get back.